2020.
Ford is recalling almost 420,000 Bronco Sport and Ford Maverick vehicles because of a seatbelt issue that may result in an injury if a crash occurs. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average down by 620 points. The Nasdaq dropped 239. The S&P 500 lower by 56. More on these stories at townhall.com.
It's finally happening. The Fed is making a change in leadership, and that could have a profound impact on the value of your retirement. When interest rates go down, the value of precious metals like gold and silver can surge. Call Advantage Gold right now at 800-900-8000 and get your free gold and silver investor guide, a $49 value, plus a free copy of Ken Rogoff's insightful book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Inside, you'll get honest information about gold, silver, and other precious metals, so you can explore your options with clarity and confidence. Our specialists can help you open a new account or transfer funds from an existing IRA, tax and penalty-free. Markets can turn fast, but gold has maintained its value through every cycle, often holding strong when other assets falter and when the dollar weakens. Are you positioned? Don't miss this opportunity. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000. Results may vary. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
Republican U.S. Senator Dan Sullivan is running for re-election in Alaska, and he faces a field of 15 competitors. One of them is Dan Sullivan.
The senator told reporters in Washington on Tuesday that he thinks the appearance on the state's primary ballot of another Republican with the same name is a dirty political trick coordinated by Democrats and the campaign of his chief rival for the seat, former Democratic Representative Mary Patola. He threatened a lawsuit to get to the bottom of it. Harry Child, the spokesperson for the Patola campaign, said it has no involvement with either Sullivan campaign. Jenny Marie Stryker, executive director of the Alaska Democratic Party, said her organization, quote, is in no way affiliated with either Dan Sullivan. Bernie Bennett reporting.
The Senate race in Iowa is one of the most closely watched this year, and the general election matchup is now set with Democrats hoping for a gain. News and analysis. From Washington, I'm Keith Peters.
From the KSEV Weather Center, this afternoon expect more clouds than sun along with high humidity and the likelihood of a heavy thunderstorm, possibly causing ponding on roadways. The temperature will reach a high of 88. Tonight it will be partly cloudy with a few showers and a thunderstorm and a low of 72. Tomorrow will bring mostly cloudy skies and high humidity with a chance of showers and another heavy thunderstorm. Be cautious as heavy downpours may reduce visibility and lead to ponding on streets and highways. The high temperature will be 84. With the KSEV Weather Center forecast, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Tune in this Saturday for the new Check a Pro America's Tax Lien Show with Ted Thomas and your host Jim Cloud. This and every Saturday at 2 p.m. here on AM 700 KSEV and AM 1540 KGBC and streaming online at KSEVradio.com, the voice of Texas.
The garage door springs that come standard with most homes don't last. And when they fail, it's not just inconvenient, it's dangerous. Hi, I'm Tommy Mello, owner of Garage Door Doctor. Our springs are the toughest in the industry, backed by our lifetime warranty.
Check a Pro Joe here. My guest this week will be Cody Johnson from Garage Door Doctor. For all of your garage door needs, contact Garage Door Doctor at 281-343-3632.
Join Joe every Saturday at 1 o'clock here on AM 700 KSEV and AM 1540 KGBC, the voice of Texas.
KSEV and its advertisers want to thank you, the listeners, for all your continued support. Without you supporting our advertisers, there would not be a Voice of Texas. We stand behind our clients, and if you're looking to boost and grow your business, join the great team at KSEV and its loyal audience by calling a member of our sales staff at 281-588-4800. That's 281-588-4800. KSEV, loyal listeners and dependable advertisers are the Voice of Texas.
One, two, cha-cha-cha. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha.
Prepare yourself for Craig.
Okay. Preparing a mighty new spectacle here.
Articulate, stimulating, hit you right in the... there you go.
We start becoming a team right now.
This is the Craig Collins Show.
Lord Jesus. Oh, God, no.
Start talking. Talk fast.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Now your host.
He's a good man.
Craig.
Oh, yeah. It is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. So much stuff to talk about, so much running around from one room to another room to do this show, which doesn't really matter to you, but it's sometimes challenging for me. And then I feel like I'm out of shape because of how out of breath I get by instant, quick movement that I don't do a whole lot of while working at the radio station. By the way, I will say this right out of the gate, just because somehow, some way, Chris X was talking about a thing that I happened to have just had, like, you know, information given to me on. I went and got my first physical after moving to Texas, got an actual doctor here in town, which I always delay. I take a long time to do that for whatever reason. I shouldn't. I know that I shouldn't. I don't rush to find my next doctor for checkups and all those, because I've been relatively healthy for a while now, I guess. That might be part of the reason that I delay it so much. But I did go get the tests. I got all the blood work, everything done. And it just so happens that I'm aware that I have a whole lot of testosterone. I was told, similarly to Chris X, by my doctor, the one thing I'm not in need of is any kind of boost there, which is pretty funny. I think, this might be a weird way to say this, I think there might be a connection between testosterone and hair loss. I don't remember if that's true. I still have my hair. I'll take my hat off on the live stream. But I'm pretty sure that in the next few years, it's not going to be so great for me. So I don't know. So it seems like it's a catch-22. You feel good about having the testosterone, not so good about potentially not having the hair. And I know I used to do a segment on the radio about my likelihood of traveling somewhere not here, where hair transplants are relatively cheap comparatively, and also supposed to be pretty good. I think India is a country they say that people should go to if you want to save some money and also get hair plugs that are going to look good. And every time I do this, my mother, I'm a millennial, she listens to the radio, always tells me not to. And my wife, of course, always tells me not to, too. But I just find that kind of funny, that I get like a couple no's, don't do that. And who knows? When it gets crazy enough, maybe I will. I do have a red light hat. People probably don't care about this. I will do news things in just a second. But I wonder if anybody else out there who's dealing with potential hair loss has tried the red light hat. I don't think it works as well as they claim. And I'm not doing a lot of it because, again, I still have most of my hair. So I don't know. It probably would be more apparent if I was missing more. But I occasionally throw the hat on with the red lights and just sit there, and my wife laughs at me because she feels like I'm cooking something under my hat directly onto my head, which is probably not good. All right, let's do topics. Let's do news stuff. But no, I won't be getting any testosterone supplements anytime soon. This CBS News thing and 60 Minutes thing is surprisingly relevant to a lot of people. Like, to be honest, I don't care a whole lot about 60 Minutes. Like, genuinely, I don't. I think that it's been biased and one-sided for a long time. I think that there was a time in our society where it was probably not those things and maybe more of a go-to place in the world of news media to pay attention to things. I've worked for shows that are on the conservative side of the aisle that wanted the 60-minute clips on Monday every single week after they aired whatever they aired of the previous week. So I have experienced before people even on my side of the political aisle who seem to value something about 60 Minutes, but I don't. And so I guess I don't really care that Scott Pelley is claiming that he had to inject news that he didn't like, bias, into his, what I would have called biased reporting in the first place. And then now Bari Weiss is getting some level of attack thrown her way by people saying that she fired a guy who sounds like he was being pretty insubordinate. But I have CBS Morning audio from this morning talking about this thing. They spent quite a bit of time actually discussing it, which is kind of interesting. And it really seems like there's a mutiny. And I'll say one last thing before I hit play on any of this audio. And you heard it on Chris's show. You've probably heard it on other shows too. Bari Weiss is pretty far from a conservative. She's not somebody that I agree with in a whole lot of things. And most of the changes she made to 60 Minutes and or CBS News as a whole forces them to be less biased on the left. It doesn't actually force them to be on the right. I can't tell you. And left-leaning idiots would definitely scream and yell this if they could. Any coverage of any topic that seems like it's overwhelmingly on the conservative side of the aisle from CBS News and or 60 Minutes. I can tell you some things that seem like they're more down the middle now, and not everything, and not everyone that works at those stations, but I do hear things that seem to be more down the middle. And the one topic, the one 60 Minutes episode that Bari suspended without canceling, and it eventually aired, I think she just wanted more attempts to get the White House on the record to react to the things they were talking about, the El Salvador prisons, instead of just airing stuff and pretending that the White House had no interest in giving its side of the argument. That's about as sound as far as news editorial pursuit as I've ever heard. To be like, you know what? Before we run this piece on 60 Minutes claiming that these prisons are horrible and that we're deporting all these people to these terrible places, just communicate with the side of the aisle that you hate or the side of the political thing that these reporters refuse to talk to for whatever reason. You choose the reason. If it's not hatred, I don't know what it is. But anyway, they don't want to talk to them, and then they're kind of forced to talk to them, and they call that bias. Just reporting what the other side is saying so that the viewer has both opinions instead of just one opinion. That is a much better thing. But here, this is CBS News, this morning, talking about the 60 Minutes firing and all the discussion now about how the person in charge there is like a Trump person. And she couldn't be further from that, to be absolutely entirely honest. Here we go.
Share with you some news about ourselves and longtime 60 Minutes correspondent Scott Pelley. On Monday, new executive producer Nick Bilton called an all-hands meeting to introduce himself to the staff. That meeting became contentious when Pelley publicly questioned the management decisions regarding the replacement of the former 60 Minutes executive producer Tanya Simon, and publicly criticized the decisions of CBS News management on the future direction of 60 Minutes.
I want to pause it right there first. So a new person that's hired to take on a new role calls a meeting to introduce himself, and Scott Pelley openly questions the new boss, if he should be the new boss, if the person who got fired should be fired. Like, you got to talk about the level of insubordination that exists there to do that. And actually, I'll tell you this very quickly, and then I'll get back to the audio I was playing. I once worked at a place that had a pretty big news thing where people would get fired and management would turn over. It was a big news organization in radio in Chicago. If you know anything about me, you can figure out where it was. But I worked there, and I would be in these meetings where the new management would take over, and they'd be telling you all the things they're going to do. And there were people in the room who'd be loyal to previous management who'd be upset. I never did that. I thought that was stupid. I always hoped that new management would be better than other management had been, and it never really got better because it was Chicago. But nonetheless, I never behaved that way, and I saw people's faces. I saw people contemplate standing up. This gets you fired. If the new boss can't count on you to listen to them, and you're going to call for mutiny from day one, you get canned. But here's more of this report.
According to CBS News management, efforts were made to see if both sides could reach common ground. Pelley met with senior management of CBS News last night, and no agreement could be reached. Pelley was then informed by 60 Minutes executive producer Nick Bilton that CBS News and 60 Minutes would have to part ways with Scott. He was terminated for cause. Scott Pelley released a statement which expressed his, quote, gratitude for the men and women of CBS News who encouraged and enriched my work, very often at the risk of their own lives. Pelley went on to say, I pray for a day when those people and their ideals are honored again, a day when sanity, competence, and courage return.
Wow.
In a letter to the staff, Bilton stated, what I will commit to this is this, by my unyielding support for each of you and the journalism that you do and what we will do together going forward.
Yeah, we know his impact on journalism and this network is undeniable.
That is crazy. It's so crazy. And actually, the fact that CBS News and CBS This Morning wanted to talk about the 60 Minutes thing, they did 78 seconds and then moved on. And I think that they probably were terrified of doing anything more, especially if their opinion isn't aligned with the television station, because the boss is the boss. I don't know how many times now, I'll say this to you, to anybody listening to the show. I don't know how many times now I've witnessed individuals, whoever they are, behave as though the boss isn't the boss, whoever it is, who's ever in charge. And that will always be a kiss of death. Wherever you work, whoever you are, I think the only time that I personally have ever understood a struggle there, it's not the same as like, outright saying, I'm not going to listen to you and all this stuff that Scott Pelley was doing. But the only time I've ever seen struggle, and I've thought it made more sense, is when there's somebody who's a secret boss. And I say this in the most, I guess somewhat silly of ways I can. But I've had coworkers at places, longtime employees, morning show hosts, not here, not at KSEV Radio, but at other places I've been at, who definitely wielded a ridiculous amount of power. They weren't a boss. No one said they were a boss, but they were definitely in charge. And if you said or did anything they didn't like, you'd wind up getting called in by the actual boss, and potentially you were in trouble. And it wasn't actually even them who was trying to hold you in trouble in the first place. It was the other person who's a secret boss. And actually, I'll say this last thing before we move on. A lot of radio stations have a morning show guy, certainly at stations that are maybe smaller markets than a Houston market, but a morning show guy who's theoretically also the boss. It's not something I've only seen once. That happens. If this guy is bringing in money or team is bringing in money, they believe they deserve to have input. It's kind of like how some sports franchises now, the MVP player gets to say a lot of things about what should or shouldn't happen within an organization. That is true a lot of places. It's just always weird when it's kept a secret. Like, I think transparency is fundamentally important to understanding if something you're asked to do is something that you have to do or not. Because if you're asked to do it by someone that you think is a colleague, there's a silly assumption that you might be allowed to say no. And if that person is a secret boss, saying no is a very bad decision on your part. But anyway, the thing I meant to say is I'm always so amused by people in all walks of life who want to pretend that someone isn't a superior of theirs. Even if it's not like the head of the whole organization. Even if you're trying to compete with someone that's directly above you, it's usually a mistake. It's not usually a good move because, these people are going to be annoyed and they have more power than you do. But I hear this all the time, especially younger employees. They get mad at supervisors or people directly above them and complain about it. And you think to yourself, like, that's a move. You can go that road if you want to. I would just quit a place if I thought that I'm being forced to do something I don't want to do. And that seems like basically what Scott Pelley did. He made it impossible to keep him. Now he's trying to pretend that he's some sort of, victim of a thing that couldn't be further from the truth. I don't think he's remotely close to being aptly described as a victim if he did what he did in that meeting. All right, let's actually move on. There's other stuff out there. There were a couple Trump clips that I thought were pretty interesting today. I play a lot of Trump clips on the show, probably more than a lot of other people play. And actually, you know what? I'll say this. I think it was one of the guys on the Daily Wire, which is Ben Shapiro's platform, not Ben Shapiro. I think it was, who was it? Let me look this up real quick as I talk about this with you. But one of his other hosts, Matt Walsh, that's who it was, say that they were sick of Trump, not because they disagreed with him. Matt Walsh is certainly a conservative, a guy that likes Trump and has said he liked Trump before, but that we've seen the same movie too many times, meaning his approach to media, President Trump's approach to how he does interviews and speeches and everything, the kind of off-the-cuff looseness of it, it's become redundant. This was Walsh's take, not mine. I could probably play it on this show if I want to go find it. But what I thought was interesting about that is that maybe that's true for some. It's not true for me. I still, for whatever reason, find these moments to be amusing. I'm still getting as much of a kick out of this as I got his first time in office. So I don't know. I wonder if for a lot of listeners or a lot of just people out there in our world, especially conservative-leaning people, if they are, at this point thinking, I've heard this before, I've seen this before, it's the same old, same old. I don't know. I can't tell you because I'm not in that group. But here is a couple moments. One where President Trump referred to a ceasefire in the Iran conflict, and he talked about how in that part of the world, ceasefire seems to mean something slightly different than it means other places.
How do you define ceasefire, sir? How do you define ceasefire?
Pretty much the way it is. It's a different part of the world. I'd say in that part of the world, ceasefire is when you're shooting in a more moderate manner.
Yeah, when you're shooting sometimes. That's a ceasefire in that part of the world. That was one comment he made. He then also talked about Caitlin Collins never smiling, which I thought was funny.
It's a very corrupt organization. but with a corrupt reporter standing right there. Never smiles. She never smiles. She's a young, beautiful woman, never smiles. I never see a smile off her face. I see her standing there with hatred in her eyes. Like, she has hatred because we have borders, because we have a strong military, because we cut our taxes, because we do things that everybody wanted, and then we win our election in a massive landslide. We win 87% of the counties in this country. Nobody's ever heard of a thing like that. And that's because we're doing the right job. And we took a detour down to Iran because we can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon under any circumstances. We can't let that happen. So the reporters should be happy. They shouldn't be unhappy. They should be very happy. Because you know what we're doing?
We're doing a great job. We're doing an amazing, amazing job, is what he's saying right there. I think this is funny. I still do. And I think that there's a lot of people who get out there and get all mad about this. Some people even accuse him of being sexist because of the things that he says that happen to uniquely be about women, female reporters, and whatnot. But I don't know. I do think that there's a lot of people. I think dudes do this to the president, too. Male far-left people who interview him, they just sit there like stone-faced. They don't want to talk to him about anything. They don't care about what he says about anything. They just hate the guy. There's no other way to say it. They do, and they show it in how they behave, and Caitlin Collins is among those people. Even though I did hear Caitlin Collins admit in a podcast, maybe this was a month ago, that Trump actually works as hard as people say he does. Someone who hates him as much as President Trump just said she does, admitted that if you go on like a flight with the current president, for some reason, if the press is on a flight, even if it's a long flight across the world somewhere, that President Trump barely sleeps at all and talks to media a bunch, which is something that is said about him a lot on the conservative side of the aisle, and I think rejected by certain liberal people, not so much Caitlin Collins, because she's actually experienced it, and she was at least honest about that. I thought that was interesting. Let me play this piece of audio. I'm going to jump this up a little bit, and yeah, okay, let's go ahead and play this. I think this is interesting, too. This is a discussion about liberal media still being upset by mean tweets. I mentioned to you that Matt Walsh says that the stuff that Trump does that he's most known for in the world of how he handles media or how he gives speeches is something that, to Matt Walsh, a part of the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's thing. If people don't know who that is, I don't know. I assume people do. He created the movie, What is a Woman, that went very, very viral. But anyway, he says that this is a trick he's seen enough times now that it's not interesting to him anymore. I think the same is easily true. I don't actually agree with Walsh, but I think the same is true about media still complaining about mean tweets. I feel like that's a movie I've seen so many times that you could probably move on to any other discussion about what you think is or isn't appropriate in the world of the president, his administration, conservatives in general, and I would probably have more capability of even hearing what the argument is than I can about this one. But this was Newsmax talking about this a little bit.
Tim, I want to get your take on this. You know, we're watching these hearings. Markwayne Mullin testifying. Marco Rubio, he's set to testify any moment. Once again today, this will be his second swearing in. There on the Hill today. It was, of course, in front of a Senate committee yesterday. Sometimes these hearings, you know, as a taxpayer, they're very frustrating. There's so much back and forth political, rhetoric and theater. Marco Rubio at one point even called it, the hearing today, earlier today, a circus. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I in this particular case, the congressman here is pretty new in Congress. He is one of those people in a majority-minority district. And so he thinks the best thing he can do to keep being voted on at home is to constantly accuse the Trump administration of white supremacy. Yeah, as you suggest, without much basis. It sounds like he's talking about their social media pages or something. And we know the liberal media tries to go after, their tweets, the White House tweets, the DHS tweets. But they've kept the country safe. They're getting the border under control.
Yeah.
That's somehow great replacement theory or white supremacy or whatever he claims it is.
Yeah, but it's something terrible and horrible. And also the mean tweets are uniquely bad still. That's what they're still telling us. I don't care. That is a very done topic to me, to say the least. And actually, what's interesting about this too, at least interesting to me, is this is the definitive pivot point for Tucker Carlson. because he said that the specific social media comments by the president just went too far. They were horrible and terrible, and they happened on Easter Sunday. And for those reasons, Tucker has since now been much more candid about his dislike of President Trump. And even that thing that was put out where he said that he might bomb people back to the Stone Age and whatnot, which he said a few times about Iran, or, create a situation where their infrastructure is so damaged that they would struggle to survive for years and years to come. I didn't have any problem with any of that. And we didn't do any of the things that people seem to claim would be war crimes or something. None of that happened. So even more, I think that rhetoric, when you're trying to convince the enemy of your seriousness, and it's not even a person here in this country, it's a literal foreign, adversary. I don't know why people react the way they do to any of that stuff. But I do have Rubio audio. I do have Markwayne Mullin audio. I did think both of those guys did a pretty good job today. Also, Scott Bessent did a good job talking to the politicians out there in the world, and testifying in front of Congress is probably the right way to say it. So I'll get to a lot of that. But this is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the Voice of Texas. More coming up in just a little bit.
When it comes to garage doors, no one knows more than the doctor. Garage door doctor.
We got a call late New Year's Eve. A father with big plans for his family the next day said his garage door spring just snapped. He couldn't get his car out and wouldn't be able to get his family to where they needed to go. He felt stuck and alone. So we showed up fast with the right spring and the right parts to fix it right. We didn't talk about the price. We didn't wait till the morning. We fixed it right then. Because at Garage Door Doctor, it's never just about the job. It's about the person behind it. The dad, the veteran, the grandpa, the neighbor. Hi, I'm Tommy Mello, owner of Garage Door Doctor. When you need help, we're the ones that show up. Call Garage Door Doctor today or schedule online at garagedoordoctor.biz. We fix garage doors fast with quality parts designed to last a lifetime because we're proud to serve the people who rely on us.
When it comes to garage doors, no one knows more than the doctor. Garage door doctor.
If you have roof problems, you can sure see them when it rains. This is Deb Tejada from Tejas Roofing. If you see a leak, call me immediately, 281-251-0304. I'll send over the Tejas Roof Repair truck.
That truck has everything our experienced crew needs to fix your roof, right then and there.
The Tejas Roofing crew has been working together fixing leaky roofs for 15 years.
It's not a pretty truck, but it has everything we need to get the job done. I kind of like the way it looks.
Most roofing repairs cost less than $500. Why? Because we find the cause of the leak and repair that leak. We won't try to sell you services you don't need.
And we'll fix it right away because everything we need is in our truck.
Don't put off fixing a leaky roof. Call me at Tejas Roofing and I'll send over the truck. 281-251-0304. When you think of roofing repairs or a new roof, think Tejas Roofing, your Houston roofing company. 281-251-0304. That's Tejas Roofing, 281-251-0304.
This is Kevin O'Hara with O'Hara & Company Real Estate. Our country's founding fathers drafted a document that is the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. My friends at O'Hara & Company Real Estate, we believe we're at a precipice in time where we must take back our country. We must stand up for our freedoms or lose them forever. Please don't sit idle and let it slip away. Don't let anyone force you to do something you choose not to. As JFK said, if not us, who? If not now, when? If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, give O'Hara & Company Real Estate a call at 281-373-3393, 281-373-3393, or look us up on the web at o'harare.com. I'm Kevin O'Hara. God bless America, and God bless Texas.
Americans in
Why is she leaving? I'm going to answer her questions.
I will.
Oh, she's go. Okay, I got it. Well, thank you for coming.
Bye.
All right, so we're going to talk about. I just want to.
Unfortunately, Representative's time has expired. Representative Salazar is recognized.
Yes, and giving contracts with no transparency is exactly the reason why you shut down USAID. So practice what you preach. I've yielded my time.
She gets to scream now too?
Chairman,
can we take down her words?
I'll give you some time. I'll give you some of my time. Then you just.
Okay.
just
Oh
change
God, what
the
kind of thing
energy.
is this? What is this? You get asked questions for 5 minutes and you don't get time to answer. It's not a hearing.
I think you said clown
Like
show
a dunk
before.
tank.
I
What is
don't
this?
have to tell you.
What is a dunk tank? This is hilarious.
I'll
I've
give
even
you
used
ti-
their time. How can I answer the question? They don't even give me time. I've had to use their time to answer your questions.
Yes.
All right, whatever.
All right, so I don't need to tell you that in my community.
All right, I'm already going to stop it. I think this is hilarious. And I think Rubio did a great job a couple times. The outburst by the crazy person, he's yelling at him, Representative Dove. And then part of the way in which he says, like, what is this? What are we doing here? Are you just going to take person after person and have them yell at me? And then they're out of time and I can't answer the question. So we just move on to the next person who gets to yell at me. I love that he called it a dunk tank. Because in political senses, it probably was sort of like a dunk tank. Here's a little bit more of Rubio. Again, I really enjoyed a lot of how he handled himself. And I think these are the things that are catapulting him up lists, even though he's pretty high up on a lot of people's lists now, to make him a likely potential presidential candidate. I think that the assumption by me and others would still be that J.D. Vance is above him, but he's doing a great job of being stronger than maybe some expected Rubio to be. If you remember from a few years ago how President Trump did very good against him in primaries. But here we go.
So Hezbollah is not just a challenge to Israel, it's a challenge to Lebanon, to the Lebanese state, and the Lebanese people. And we are hopeful that we can create a paradigm in which Lebanon's government and Israel can work together to disarm Hezbollah and allow the people of Lebanon to reclaim its country. But it's complex. This has been going on since OJ had isotoners in those commercials. So.
That's a great joke, by the way. It's a Kanye West line, too, I believe. So way to go with Marco Rubio there. And yes, absolutely. This has been going on for a long time, and we hope that maybe we can get one of the countries involved to do some things that they haven't done in the past. This would all be great. Let's also play a little audio of Scott Bessent. He had his own mic drop moment. Look, I'll say this, and Mark Wayne Mullen has audio out there too that's going viral. Sometimes people say that someone's behavior makes them less politically valuable, whatever that might be. I know for a while they said it about Trump, that he's not presidential, and that's gone away. I don't think you know a whole lot of people who would vote for President Trump that think that that matters at all. But I still occasionally see it seem to be something people believe about other politicians. They don't like that some people show up ready to fight. I'm not like that at all. I kind of enjoy every single back and forth fighting going on where conservatives act like they're standing up for themselves. I like that. I would like more politicians to be people that want to do that. I know SNL even makes fun of the Pete Hegseths of the world, pretends they're all like frat guys, but I think that this is the right way to handle other politicians and mainstream media a lot when they are openly being sort of hostile with you, is be hostile back. Why not? I don't think that's a bad thing. Here's Bessent with a mic drop moment as described by some on social media.
Senator Wyden has mendaciously slandered the Treasury building in an attempt to cover up his son having an investment meeting with Jeffrey Epstein to ask for funding. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Let's be clear here. Nobody is interested in the ramblings of a capo in the most corrupt regime in American history.
Wow!
I want to get some facts about this deal. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I will ask my questions first today.
And we would like to hear what Adam Wyden and Jeffrey Epstein talked about. Your son's largest investment position was Rick's Cabaret. So did your son and Jeffrey Epstein talk about pole dancing as he begged him for money using your limited credibility?
That is amazing as far as the back and forth goes. And no, Bessent didn't like scream and yell and threaten to punch people, which is something that I kind of think Mark Wayne Mullen would like to do more of. But I think that was a great, and I played the audio in the middle. I probably could have cut it to make it a little nicer and cleaner. But nonetheless, there was that weird pause moment after you take what you think is a decent shot at Bessent, and then he fires right back, calling him a capo as just stupid, acting like they're a mafia. I do kind of think this is amazing. And so I will say this about the way that this is all talked about, that truthfully, if you were to evaluate the last few years and include the Biden administration time period in it, the organization that acted more like a mafia, more like a group that could do whatever they wanted and rules and things didn't apply, it was definitely the Biden administration, not the Trump administration. And there's a few ways to demonstrate that. One of the biggest is to point to the auto pen and how it was used and how more and more people are admitting that Biden's brain was broken, and yet he did stuff, including the last day of his presidency when he pardoned a whole bunch of individuals for crimes that they might have committed between 2014 and the last day that Biden was in office. That is surreal as far as behavior goes. And then they said they did it to fight the other regime, but I don't know when, if ever, in society, someone's innocence needed them to be pardoned to prevent them from being in trouble for stuff they didn't do, or you were going to tell me that they didn't at all do. So that was weird. Also, the way in which during the Biden administration, people were forced to get vaccine shots, and that became a thing a lot of other places too. Didn't happen during Trump. There's multiple examples of this actually occurring where it was that group, even Kamala Harris's campaign, the fact that she just took over and that nobody voted for her to be the replacement for Biden or to be the candidate in the first place. All of those things are so profoundly different than what Democrats say they stand for that it's sort of hilarious to listen to them do this. But all right, one other thing in the world of Mark-Wayne Mullen, and I do want to play this audio, even though I'm pretty sure it's being shared by some people. Screw it. I'm going to skip it because there's other things to talk about too. But there are some people that are just trying to take cheap shots at Mark-Wayne for being what I think is an entertaining person because people deserve to be told that they suck to their face as often as possible. And I think that that's kind of a fun thing. And then there's a longer clip of Mark-Wayne Mullen talking about Trump, too, that's out there today that I probably will skip as well. Other things to talk about, other things that I think are important today. I saw this trend a lot of places, actually. Chris Salcedo this morning on this very station did an interview with our Mythbusters. That's a mistake. With Newsbusters, RMC, and they had a lot to say. And so I just thought this was kind of an interesting back and forth, talking about The View and how they've ramped up lying, talking about coverage that sways voters and can influence elections. So I'm going to play a little bit of Salcedo from this morning because it went viral a few places on social media that I follow. And I was like, I know that guy when I saw these videos. So here's a little bit of his show from this, I think it was today or it might have been yesterday, talking to the guys behind a really must-follow place on X on Twitter, the Newsbusters page, and all the information they put out there too. But I think the guys' names are actually Nick Fondacaro and then also Curtis Hawk, who did this interview.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on this about kind of trying to discourage people from wanting to turn out or trying to convince people that you're really going to be all alone. And I think that's really what this comes down to, particularly Disney's ABC News. We'll end where we began. Because ABC News in particular, the shows that Nick and I watch, it's negative story after negative story after negative story, that everything is going to you-know-where. In a handbasket, and there's really nothing anybody can do about it. And the president, Republicans, I mean, yes, they have issues, but like nobody of any party knows anything, so we might as well just vote for Democrats and pack it all in. Terrible. That's what this is about. This is about suppressing the vote by convincing you that your vote doesn't matter, when it actually does.
Nick, how do you see it, and then how do you combat it?
Yeah, so we're absolutely prepared for this. This is what we've been doing for many, many years here at the MRC since 1987. And basically, one of the things we look for is the bias by omission and trying to make sure that these get the facts out there that they don't want to show. After the 2020 election, one of the things that we did was we ran a poll asking people who voted, hey, did you know about these different Biden scandals? And would it have changed your vote if you had known about them? And these were all scandals that the media sort of downplayed or didn't cover at all. And there was like a good percentage, like 1% to 2%, depending on the scandal, that would have changed their vote. And if you apply that to different states, that can be a whole electoral vote. That's how the media are able to sway the election.
They ignore stuff that they don't want to talk about, and they overly talk about stuff that they might be misrepresenting. They do all kinds of things to try to push you to vote a certain way. And I love that they're even honest about that when they say that the polling they did only showed 2% as far as a reaction goes to some of the likelihood that someone would change their vote if certain information was more readily available to them. That wasn't, and how many people that actually means it is. By the way, the Spencer Pratt thing is uniquely entertaining to me. I've enjoyed his campaign. I love the fact that it looks as though he's in a runoff now to potentially be the next mayor of Los Angeles, which would be incredible if that happens. And I think for a lot of reasons, probably there's more of a chance for that than people want to admit that there is on the left, even if I assume, I'm going to say this honestly, I assume that LA will make the wrong decision and let Karen Bass continue to do terrible things there instead of have Spencer Pratt have a shot at it. But I'm wildly amused by everything going on and his whole campaign and the way in which multiple times Spencer has told Maine news media when they asked him this, not Maine as in a different place, Main Street media, I should say, that he's ready to go and doing so well because of how terrible media treats him, that they're incredibly unfair, and so it made him conditioned to do well with this. The latest information I've seen, Karen Bass, 34% of the vote, and Spencer Pratt, 30% or so, 31% of the vote. And the amount that separates them is like 20,000 people, which is crazy to think about in a Los Angeles. Like the amount of people who actually do show up and vote for this stuff compared to the amount of people that could show up and vote, it's such a small amount. So if you're silencing or censoring information so that some people are making decisions based on you controlling that outcome and not telling them the totality of the truth, you can see how much of an impact it has on a bunch of issues, a bunch of races, maybe not just the ones that are the presidential elections every 4 years, but these smaller races that happen all over the place. This is how media controls who's in these positions of power. And I think that, of course, we need to do a better job of preventing that. And people will say this. I'll say this last thing before I take another break, and then we'll come back. I will do some sillier stuff, a la the Dana Quick 5 segment that I steal from her and do a Quick 4-ish version of the same segment. But I will say that, to me, one of the most important things about certain types of media, my own show, is that you are a counter program and countercultural type of thing to the side that doesn't admit that they're opinionated. Of course we're opinionated here at KSEV. Of course we are. We're not going to pretend that everything we tell you is a fact. I'm not going to tell you it's a lie. I'm not going to tell you that anything I represent as true is actually not. That's not how I do radio. That's not how the people here do radio. But we certainly infuse our opinion into the things we discuss. And that's necessary because there's a ton of people who absolutely do not admit it, but they put their opinion into what they talk about and also what they neglect to talk about, what they ignore, so that they can keep you voting however it is they want you to vote. We're not about that stuff here. KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas, not a fan of that way of dealing with the way that news works and what's out there and what you don't wind up hearing about. But all right, we'll take a break. As I said, KSEV, KGBC, thrilled to be with you. It is the Craig Collins Show. More next.
You know, where we go in life matters, and what we do matters. And we know that taking the wrong road won't produce the best outcomes. Hi, I'm Kathy with Baker Mortgage, and we want you to take the right path when it comes to your mortgage. You know, we live in a world of information overload, but always consider the source. And these are not generally going to be from your big bank or a random offer that comes across your screen. Remember, you're always going to get a better deal on one that you go looking for than one that comes looking for you. You need to deal with somebody who gives a you-know-what, whether or not you're happy in the end. At Baker Mortgage, we do it right. We haven't been around for 68 years because we're lucky. We don't sell CDs, insurance, or anything else. We just provide a great mortgage experience. Isn't that what you're looking for? Call us at Baker Mortgage. I promise you'll be glad you did. We're at 281-313-MOVE or go directly to bakermortgage.com.
Equal housing lender. License number 263213. Spring deals are popping up early at Lowe's. Right now, get 4 bags of Stay Green 2 cubic foot mulch for just $10. Plus, save $20 on an Ego 56-volt string trimmer, now just $199. Spring starts better when you save early. Don't miss out. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 3/18. Mulch offer excludes Hawaii. Selection varies by location. While supplies last.
Everyone knows the BBB is the Better Business Bureau, but depending on what you need, it's the Better Plumber Bureau, the Better Auto Mechanic Bureau, the Better Accountant Bureau. That's because the BBB connects people with businesses they can trust. So think of the BBB as the better check that business out first so you don't get ripped off bureau. Be smart. Always look for the BBB seal because it's looking out for you. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
Rain-X wipers are the #1 wiper blades in America. That means all kinds of drivers choose Rain-X. Big drivers in small cars choose Rain-X. Small drivers in big cars choose Rain-X. Drivers with long hair and short commutes choose Rain-X. Drivers with short hair and long commutes choose Rain-X. Drivers with pets on board, babies on board, and bored babies on board choose Rain-X. Basically, drivers who love a clear view of the road all choose Rain-X wipers, the #1 wiper blades in America.
Beautiful and healthy trees do increase your property value, but the key word here is healthy. Sick, ugly trees will actually decrease the value of your home. That's why I recommend you call Lewis Flory with Ability Tree Experts at 281-441-4179. They can spot insect and disease problems the average person will never see. They will make sure your trees are properly pruned to allow sunlight and fresh air into the canopy and allow strong winds to blow through instead of damaging your tree. Call Lewis Flory today. That's 281-441-4179. Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professionals.
This is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. Thrilled to be with you. A lot left, a very little time left to talk about things. Some sillier stuff out there. I call this the Quick 4-ish segment. It is very similar to the Quick 5 that Dana Lash does. She's now back at the station from 2 to 4 o'clock every single day. A great show. I was really amused that somebody called into Chris's show to say that they're really happy that Dana's back because she's hot. That was uniquely funny. And you know what's actually amusing about that is talk about a place where it's not as helpful as it is other places being on the radio. The radio, which is one of the things Dana has done for a long time. She's done a lot of other stuff too. But I just thought that was great because it's like, yeah, this is a big reason that I listen. And I'm not bashing the guy. That's awesome. Listen for whatever reason you want. I listen for the takes, listen for all of it. I just thought it was funny that you're like, yeah, and this is, again, one of the reasons I'm a fan. I doubt you're alone, by the way, Bud. I bet you a lot of other people are fans of Dana for all kinds of reasons. That is probably one of them. Other things out there that I saw, these are all silly things. Keystone Light, one of my favorite beer companies, not because they're good, but because it reminds me of college when people used to load up trash cans with Keystone and ice, and that's what you drink at a dorm party at Notre Dame. I didn't go to Notre Dame. I went to Holy Cross, but that was a Notre Dame party. I bet they still do it. It was hilarious. But anyway, Keystone is offering a unique thing for America's 250th, something you could rent and have show up or technically fly over your barbecue. There's a commercial that tells you what it is. So let's go ahead and play on this. This has got to be worth the amount of money that they're saying. I think it's only like $250, but I think you have to win to get a shot at one of these things. But here we go.
America takes things and makes them better. Yeah. Like how Keystone Light took apple beer and made it bitter. And now they're making the most American day of the year.
July 4th, 250th.
Even better. Book the most American house in America and get a World War II plane flyover for your 4th of July barbecue.
Airplanes, pilot.
More dips. All for $250 American dollars.
Yeah.
Age of America, but with money. So celebrate America's birthday with American planes flying over your American head. Because nothing's more American than the most American light apple beer in America.
All right, that commercial could probably take a couple steps back. It probably didn't need to have as much Mountain Dew before they made that thing. But to be honest with you, and the part that I loved the most about it is that for $250, some people are going to be able to purchase a flyover from a World War II plane on your cookout for the 4th of July. And I especially like that if you don't even have a bunch of people there. Like if you're the kind of person that's going to do a cookout for 6 to 10 people and you get a flyover from a plane that cool, part of me would be so thrilled to be at a situation like that, to be at a party like that, that I'm tempted somewhat to do it myself, and yet I probably won't. But that's a really cool idea they put out there, and it does make things more American. Again, even if that commercial, and this is a guy that I think I have a lot of energy, you could have dialed that back a tad. Another story out there that I love, this is, I think, a couple residents in a village in Long Island, New York, talking about how no one wants to be the mayor there. No one. They have no candidates. They're going to do a write-in election because they got to elect somebody. And then whoever wins, and I say air quotes when I say that, they have to be in charge even if I think they don't want to be, although they can probably quit if they get the job, and then who knows how many people will say no that get elected. But here's part of the bizarre situation of a village in Long Island that has no actual candidates for mayor.
It's ridiculous. I've never seen anything like this.
Ask them to run for office, they don't want to do it. So they don't pay attention. When you don't pay attention, this is what happens.
Get a lot of people writing in people who are not qualified.
Some guy comes up there with 50 of his closest friends. He's your mayor. If 100 people get one write-in each, it's a tie. So it's a strange situation.
Look, I want a runoff in that situation. I want a tie where 2 people or 4 people or 10 all had 50 of their buddies write them in. I think that's hilarious. And I also think that it's pretty indicative of what politics actually are today. Now, I think there's a lot of races where the only people that want stuff, they want to be in charge, want it for their own selfish reasons. And that if, like, everyday Americans were actually given the option to be politicians, most of us want to say no because we're not there for selfish reasons, and we know the job, if done well, is actually hard. It's actually difficult to do valuable things that help people without doing things that just blatantly steal and allow fraudsters to take a whole bunch of our taxpayer dollars. Like, I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there who would actually be great if we sent them to Washington or told them they were in charge of things, even on a local level, that would never do it in a million years. And these people would be awesome at this job. I actually think about that a lot. This is not the intent of this topic. This is just supposed to be sillier. But this is something I consider from time to time, which says a lot about me probably, that the Founding Fathers intended for the job of politician to pay nothing. That was the original hope for it, is that people would step forward who wanted to impact our society in valuable ways and get nothing financial for themselves out of it, because that hopefully is what attracts good people to the job and not selfish people. And then eventually they started to pay them, and then pay them a lot, because we found out that if you didn't pay somebody anything, they were even more susceptible to bribes and fraud than if you at least paid them something. But look at the society we're in now and the amount of politicians who do whatever they want for money, however they get it. I mean, like, to go back to Biden from before, and I'm going to move on to something silly in a second, there's so much proof of just a blatant stealing of money or embezzling of money, or in some cases, Hunter Biden getting paychecks from places he shouldn't have been getting paychecks from. And the way that I've heard it described in D.C. when it happened and even after is, well, it's D.C. for you. People are all being paid. Family members, friends of politicians are all on the take somewhere. That's horrible. And of course, a lot of us believe that it's true, and that's the exact opposite of what the intention of being a politician in the first place was supposed to be in this country. So I do really like this, again, to get back to the silly, the New York, Long Island story. Nobody wants the job, and nobody does. And I like the New York accent when the guys are like, this is ridiculous. What are we going to do? How are you going to do this now? You know, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know who's going to be our mayor. And I think maybe this person's going to be one of the best mayors in the country. I'm not sure, maybe. That or they could definitely be someone who's not good at the job at all, which is hilarious. All right, one last thing to play for sillier audio I have out here, and I'm probably playing this because it's another accent that's involved. But the story, a parakeet is loose in a Scottish suburb. It's being blamed for thousands of dollars of damage. They're saying the parakeet is pecking through rubber parts in people's cars, doing all kinds of other stuff. So a piece of news audio that went viral involved a resident of a suburb in Scotland. The guy's name is Angus Chisholm, who is quite upset at the parakeet that's run loose. I love all the setup for this topic.
Well, it'd be nice if it was caught humanely and taken away, and obviously it's domesticated. But
it is.
somebody could look after it. Putting a cover in your car is the solution, but every time you go out, you've got to take the cover off, and it's not ideal. So now my car is so badly damaged, I'm not sure it could do any more damage, so I'm just leaving it until I need to change my car, and then I'll get it fixed. By which time it will be resolved, hopefully.
Yeah, there we go. Which time it will be resolved. I love that you can hear some cawing in the background. I don't know if that's the parakeets.
So I'm just leaving it until I need to change my car, and then I'll get it fixed. By which time it will be resolved, hopefully.
My other favorite part of this, not just that his accent amuses me, and Angus Chisholm, because he sounds exactly like you'd think he'd sound as a Scottish guy in a suburb there, but that he's essentially surrendered his car to a very small bird. He's decided that he can't fight this fight. He's not going to fight this fight. And the car is damaged enough anyway that there's no real reason to save it. So a parakeet has taken out people's vehicles in Scotland. Whenever you think things could be worse here, just know that somewhere else something terrible is happening that probably makes no sense, especially in Texas. Like, try to envision that happening here in this actual place in which we live. And the amount of hunters and people that would take this parakeet out very quickly. The parakeet would probably have a hail of bullets surround it the next time it popped up trying to destroy somebody's car, and that would be the end of that situation, and I would be wildly amused by it. I've always thought those stories were funny when I see them, and it's like one turkey that's terrorizing a town, and you wonder to yourself how that's even remotely possible. Like how can you envision that happening here? And then I say all this, and probably I'll be on the news tonight, because on my drive home, a turkey will attack my car. And then all of a sudden, a local radio host gets attacked by turkey on highway. Will be a story that I'll never live down for the rest of my life. But bring it is actually probably what I'll say to all the turkeys and small animals out there. I can take multiple of you. I don't know how many. I don't want to do that on the radio per se, but I know I can. I know that if it was me versus a parakeet, I'm winning that fight. Me versus a turkey, I'm winning that fight. You're going to have to team up with a lot of your friends to even make it fair. All right, and then one final thing, no audio for it, but I thought this was funny. Listerine is now offering a range of spicy mouthwash. I'm not a spicy food guy. I actually would struggle more to defeat spicy food than I would a small animal in a fight. My wife loves spicy food as someone from Mexico. I don't know if she's going to like this, though. There is extra mild, which is the exact opposite of what you would think as far as spice goes for your mouthwash. Then there's mild. Then there's intense. There's all kinds of spicy Listerines out there that you can get. I thought this was funny, too. I don't know why this is the kind of thing that you'd even make. And it's the kind of thing that can, I guess, separate the men from the boys as far as who can handle it. If this was the only mouthwash, I'd use it. I'm fine with that. I actually really like using mouthwash every day. Not just doing the teeth brushing, but I think when you talk for a living, the mouth gets pretty dry and gross, and so you need to do the mouthwash. But spicy mouthwash would be at the bottom of my list. We don't need to change things that are working fine. It's not like regular mouthwash is delicious, but it doesn't have to be varied in any way. I don't understand anybody who does this stuff. We have 7,000 different types of Oreo now. We didn't need that many. The regular Oreos were doing just fine. All right, that's it. That's the whole show. I'll talk to you guys next time. Thrilled to be on KSEV KGBC, the voice of Texas.
You're listening to the voice of Texas, AM 700 KSEV Tomball and AM 1540 KGBC.